3 years ago, I embarked on a wardrobe build. The idea was to build a professional grade wardrobe with basic tools, with all the cutting and a little bit of a constructing done in a pop-up workshop, because that's generally how I roll. 7 videos followed, watched by more than 2.5 million of you, so I can't thank you enough for that. And links to all those videos will be in the description below this one. Now, Darren got in touch last week to say he'd overcome his fears of taking on a project like this by watching the videos multiple times and planning, designing everything on SketchUp. Oh, I wish I was using SketchUp. With the open cut list add-on built in. He finally bit the bullet and has the plinth and 3 carcasses constructed. And he's now kindly become a patron and uploaded these images to my Discord channel, where I and everyone else can now support him with the rest of his build. So after reading his comments, I thought actually it'd be quite useful to do an update video, so that if any of you, after watching those videos, are planning a build of your own, you can find out how this wardrobe system has fared over the last 3 years. So today's video is a quick update to remind you how I built it, what's worked well, and the improvements, if any, I'd make if I was building it again. Now, you can obviously delve into each video for the details, but let's have a quick run through of how I put this together. For a start, we had a pine plinth, then moisture resistant MDF, 5 carcasses of 18mm construction with a 12mm back piece. We then have these top boxes that sit on top of the carcasses, obviously. And as you can see here, the light wiring was hidden in channels that ran between these 2 sections. All the lighting had to be installed before the top boxes could be fixed in place. And for these wide cupboards, a steel plate strengthening this front section so that if there's anything heavy in the box above, it's not going to bow down. Also, with all the weight of the clothes hanging. These fascias were cut from, again, planks of pine with a routed decorative front edge. I think this fascia makes the wardrobe look more professional and from a practical point of view hides those cut edges of the 80mm MDF carcasses. And each cupboard has a light activated sensor, which unfortunately Sensio have since discontinued. And whilst the main cupboards have got the light just running along the inside top edge, which is also angled backwards, I routed a strip into the underside of the carcass so you can't see the LEDs. It was following the advice of one of you lot to actually put an additional strip down this cupboard so that the LEDs illuminated each individual shelf. Cunning, eh? And in fact, the company I bought the lights and sensors from has sadly gone bust too. The drawers were a really simple design that's simply glued and screwed together with these black soft close heavy duty runners, and the black finish I chose so that they literally blend in. I never even noticed that there, to be honest with you. And the doors, perhaps rather controversially, are this really simple 12mm back panel with 12mm rails and stiles glued to the front. What I call a faker shaker design. We'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. With these Blum soft close, ooh, a bit of dust there, with these Blum soft close hinges. Now, I was so exhausted and relieved to finally get that 7-part video series finished. I never did a proper reveal at the end, and a few of you pointed that out. Crazy really if you think about it. So let's start this video with a little summary of everything we've got here. So as per the original drawings, we've got the 5 wardrobe units, the 2 on the outside with full length hanging, the 2 immediately inside that, one for me, the other on the far right for DIYte, with 4 large drawers and hanging above in each. And then DIYte has an extra cupboard in the middle with 4 shelves and 4 more drawers. The top boxes above provide additional storage, and I'm particularly chuffed with these triangular corner cupboards, which really maximise the space available for storage. The drawers have a massive full-length extension amounting to 450mm past the front of the carcass. I put 2 dividers in the top drawer to separate the pants from the socks from the belts, etc. I've taken the pants out because you don't want to see my pants. And also the unmatching mess of socks in the middle divider. And I'm so pleased I fitted soft close runners, because whilst tricky to install, you can't put a value on something you can just push and walk away from. For the same reason, I simply love the soft close doors, a feature you wouldn't get with traditional butt hinges, whilst concealed hinges are so much stronger than butt hinges, particularly given the MDF material they're being fixed into. And if you were wondering what the difference was between soft close and normal hinges, here's this door with the soft close switched off. And if you're a butt hinge fanatic, you could only dream of this sort of adjustment once the doors are hung. So that was a big plan and it all worked rather well, but what I couldn't predict was how durable it was going to be, how well it was going to age. So let's run through the potential issues that I saw at the time and what has actually happened in those 3 years. Now, first up, when you make doors in this slightly dodgy DIY way, I love making them like this because by making them with a flat back panel rather than having to indulge in mortise and tenons or buying a, I don't know, Festool domino machine, you really can keep things very simple and it makes it very accessible for people of all skills levels. But there is that potential issue of the door bowing. Now, and I have had this happen to me a couple of times in the past when a door that I just finished making bent like a banana. Now, I didn't have this issue here, and I did a couple of things to make sure that wouldn't happen. Firstly, by putting packers underneath my workbench, I made sure on day one that the workbench was absolutely flat. Because the danger making doors like this, if you're making them on an uneven surface, when you nail your rails and stiles onto the backplate, you're fixing the shape that the backplate was in when you put them onto it. Secondly, in gluing the rails and stiles to that base piece, I made sure that the glue was consistently spread. I don't know whether this helps, but again, one of the doors that bowed in the past, I made by using a gap filling adhesive, which I just put in wavy lines around the back. Thirdly, once all the doors were constructed, I laid them in a big pile in the garage on a completely flat base until I was ready to paint them. And fourthly, this door is well supported. It's got 4 hinges up the back, which I think will help it lock in place. And finally, I put door stops at the top and the bottom, just in case when the door was in its shut position, if there was a mismatch, the door could naturally warp over time. So all things considered, the doors literally haven't moved an iota since I installed them. I was also quite worried about this wide cupboard bowing down along the top edge because of the weight, partly of the shirts and whatever you've got hanging in here pulling it down, but also the weight from things bearing down on it from up above. But again, there's been absolutely no evidence of any sagging down of this cupboard, and I think that is almost entirely due to the metal banding that I put along the front, because MDF, as we all know, is pretty unstable, even when you've got 2 18mm sheets like I have screwed to each other. I was a bit worried about the drawer runners giving me problems, particularly the soft close element, which has a pin that clips into a sort of guide at the back. But I would say that once I set them up and aligned them correctly, they've worked faultlessly ever since. Now, at the time of the original video, I had quite a lot of people saying to me, aren't you worried about damp and mould inside the cupboards? And my response was, firstly, no, because I've got quite well insulated walls in here, Kingspan K118 and also PIR behind that. But secondly, if you've watched any of my recent videos, you'll know just how ridiculously fixated I am with ventilation. Somebody said recently, this guy's obsessed with damp and mould. So the relative humidity levels are quite low in here anyway.
And actually, if you look in here, that's the fuse spur for the lighting.
An Ethernet cable that's currently unconnected.
You can see there isn't a single speck of mould or condensation.
The one potentially weak link we've got here is with those lights. Now, on one hand, the light strips, the LED strips themselves, can be quite easily replaced should they fail, because the connectors are accessible here in the cupboard. After all, I did actually put the LED strips in after everything was installed. The problem we've got though is with those sensors. Firstly, they've been discontinued, possibly because of this ridiculous situation where I had to paint a white spot on the door for the sensor to activate because it didn't like my paint colour. And secondly, even if they hadn't been discontinued and I wanted to replace them, that is going to be very difficult because I pressed them into the cupboard from below. There isn't any slack on the cable for me to pull them out and replace them, which in hindsight was a mistake because I could easily have made it long enough to pull it out entirely. So I have got a bit of a problem if I ever have any problems with them. I just hope they are so basic there isn't much that could possibly fail. And so we come to the final section of this video, paint durability. Now, I painted this entire wardrobe system with this Johnston's acrylic durable eggshell, and in fact I've used up basically the whole tin. There's a little bit left helpfully, of this 4.6 litres. So that's how much it took to paint all of these wardrobes. And it's worth pointing out that Johnston's about a year ago brought this out, AquaGuard Durable, in a matte finish. This particular one, they do different sheens, and I'm actually going to use this afternoon on the new banquette seating I've been working on. So watch this space to see how we get on with that. I didn't go oil-based because it would have taken too long to dry, particularly given I was painting most of this back in February 2021, which has made me realise that these wardrobes are 4 years old, not 3. There's my maths coming to play again. But all things considered, it's fared pretty well. We've had the odd scuff where the top boxes had sagged a bit. You're not really meant to install top boxes with this width to height ratio, just because it puts a bit of strain on the hinges, but these are fine because they're Blum. And a little bit of adjustment on those top boxes, and they're working beautifully again in readiness for the repainting. Also, we've got this one here where the top box door had clashed with the frame and taken a bit of the corner off. And finally, there are these scuff marks on pretty much every door where we've got drawers, because accidentally the door has sprung back a bit. We haven't realised, and we've pulled the drawer open, which has smashed the drawer into the door and scuffed it. My advice to you when you're making these drawers is put a rounded edge on the corner. So if this happens, which is pretty unavoidable for a design like this, the drawer is more likely to sort of glance the door away rather than bash straight into it and scuff the surface. I'm tempted to protect those inner surfaces and also the drawer fronts, which have got sort of fingerprints on them, with, I don't know, a protective varnish like Minwax or Blockade. Or actually sort of Rock Top, not Blockade. Maybe let me know in the comments if you've done a similar thing and how effective it's been. I'm just a bit skeptical because I painted our kitchen table with something similar, and when I did have to come and repaint it, I had to scrape off all of that varnish. So I'd be really interested to hear from you how you've got on with these sort of protective coatings. But anyway, I filled that damaged corner with 2-part wood filler, and luckily have, as I said, a small amount of the acrylic paint left. So a quick run over those scuffed areas, taking care to paint the whole area to prevent the problem of flashing. I did some spot touch-ups as well, but looking at this in the light, I reckon the whole front could probably do with a bit of a repaint to get rid of finger marks and the like, which brings again back into focus that whole idea of putting some sort of a protective finish over the front. Let's have a discussion about that in the comments. But anyway, considering it's just over 4 years old, I think it's looking pretty good. And I promised myself some sort of a shoe rack, but I still haven't got round to making it. So that's it for today. I hope you found that useful. Massive thanks again for watching. Don't forget, details of everything I've talked about, including links to all those 7 videos, will be in the description below this video. And let's carry on those comments on things like protective finishes and anything else you can think of mentioning. Finally, if you're new to my channel, it would literally mean the world to me to have you subscribe. You can do that by clicking on the link here, and don't forget to click the bell notification icon so you get notified of all my future uploads. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week when I promise you I'll be doing banquettes.